I had an imaginary friend growing up, and his name was Bartholomew, named after the mouse that gets eaten by that big fat cat in the Great Mouse Detective movie. Oh, my dear Bartholomew.
Oh, my dear Bartholomew. I'm afraid that you have gone and upset me.
If a young girl B is going through a difficult experience as she begins to see everyone else's imaginary friends and attempts to reconnect people with their long-lost forgotten ifs.
We've started a matchmaking agency to help ifs find new kids.
Or we just disappeared.
Blue. Happy place.
Oh, coffee and croissants.
Written and directed by John Krasinski, and I was excited to check out this film after A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2 were so great. I thought he did such an awesome job with both of those movies, and this is a total change in the direction of where he was going, and you could tell that this film was passionate for him and a reason for him to make a kids film so that his kids can also enjoy some of his work. Overall, I pretty much enjoyed it. It had some really cool parts to it. First of all, the imagination of this movie, just like Imaginary Friends, is very creative and a lot of fun. Just a great time at the theaters. This is definitely a full-blown kids film. I think it's only rated G, and it is such a cool look at dealing with grief and loss and how to struggle with like going through difficult times and mental health and these things that are wrapped up in a kid's film. And I thought he did a great job of executing those ideas and also supporting this great idea written by John Krasinski is the amazing cast himself. Let's start off with talking about Kaylee Fleming, who is awesome in this movie. I had a really hard time figuring out like what do I know this actress from, and it finally dawned on me she is Judith, young Judith from The Walking Dead, and she is great in this film. I thought she had to deal with a huge range of emotions. She has to deal with CGI characters, real life actors, has to deal with some pretty traumatic things at times, and I thought she pulled off her performance very well.
Yes.
Of course, the hilarious John Krasinski is also in this movie at parts as her father. You got the hilarious Ryan Reynolds in there as Cal, the one who's kind of like taking her through this adventure of all these imaginary friends in this world. And then the rest of the cast of voice actors is rounded out by this amazing sleuth of great performers such as Steve Carell, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Matt Damon, Emily Blunt, Sam Rockwell, Bradley Cooper, Bill Hader. And that's just to list off some of the names in this movie. I'm not going to go through all of them because I would be here all night. I thought the characters they created for this film, like Blossom and like the ice in the drink and the banana and just like a bunch of really funny if characters populate this film and make it a really fun film, especially for kids. Like this is definitely a movie geared towards children, and I think if you have that mindset going into this film, you should thoroughly enjoy it. The directing is good. The CGI is not very good, but it's not supposed to be. So if like you're expecting Avatar level of CGI, I think you'll be disappointed in this film, but it is a kids movie. It's not supposed to look real life. It's supposed to look imaginary and dream-like and ridiculous. And I appreciate that because this is an original film. It's also not IP. It's literally an original story with original characters, and it's not from a comic book, and I hope they continue down this path. Even if this movie doesn't work in some ways, and I'll talk about that in a minute, let's keep movies like this getting pumped out through the Hollywood system.
More.
There's some really funny parts to it, a lot of good laughs in this film. It just has that really feel-good family film, and it kind of is like a Disney film brought to life in a way. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Sesame Street meets like Inside Out, and it's kind of a blend of those two. And if you like those, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy this flick. Some of the cinematography in this film is really cool to look at. I thought it was really well created and there was some well done shots, but I thought these actors and the director and like the crew did a good job of selling this movie and this idea fairly well.
You had me at hello.
Now let's talk about a couple of the things that didn't quite work so well in this flick. The biggest thing for me was the pacing and the tone of this movie. While it's an hour and 45 minutes, This is definitely a movie that could have been trimmed to an hour and a half. I thought that there was a little too much time spent on like the dad and the hospital, and even though it was only like 3 or 4 scenes in the movie, they were sort of extended to the point where it chopped up the film so much. I wasn't quite sure of what the tone of this film was supposed to be. There are times where it is very whimsical and beautiful and uplifting and hilarious, and then times where it's downright drab and morbid and confusing. And then there's times where it just didn't really want to commit fully to the story it was telling, and then veered off in other subplots, but then eventually makes its way back to the main plot of the film. So it does meander a lot at times, and thus the pacing and the tone of the film is often confusing or just made me feel lost altogether as I was watching the film.
Hi, we are so incredibly lost.
When it comes to the adult themed things, there wasn't a lot in the movie for me as an adult to grasp onto. So I feel like this is a movie for kids. I would have enjoyed the hell out of this movie if I was like 10, 9 years old, kind of around that age. I don't know if the story necessarily that came to fruition was the best one and could have been told in the best way. There are some character decisions in this movie too that were baffling at times, like why would they choose to do this? That makes no sense. And I know it's a kids movie about imaginary friends, but at the same time, you got to ground these characters. As much as I like Ryan Reynolds and I'm all for him, I just started getting into Welcome to Wrexham, and I love that documentary TV series. Love him in Deadpool and Just Friends and Van Wilder. Like, I am a fan of Ryan Reynolds. Watching this film, I started to get a little bit of Ryan Reynolds fatigue. This is his go-to shtick. It's like the somewhat down on his luck lovable guy that's sarcastic and kind of mean, but ultimately has a heart of gold. And I would like to see him do some different roles now. And I'm excited for Deadpool and Wolverine. So at times also Ryan Reynolds' performance felt a little bit tiresome. But generally I did enjoy this film. I think it is worth checking out, especially if you have kids and kids love kind of movies like this. This movie has been super successful so far because it's an original story and it is marketed towards children. Before I give you my final thoughts on this film, make sure you click that like button and subscribe to my channel down below for more content. Also, let me know in the comments, what did you think of If? Did you enjoy this John Krasinski film? What are some of your family favorite films that you've seen? I would love to hear your thoughts and comments. Thank you so much for doing that. I still had a fun time with this movie. I thought John Krasinski and his team executed a family, funny, friendly, entertaining film and put a smile on your face at the end of the day. I'm gonna go ahead and give If a B. Thank you so much for checking out Mr. Teach Film Preach. Come back and check out some other reviews such as The Fall Guy and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Stay focused, stay awesome, and as always, let's get taught.